I am so amazed that Ostapenko won the Stuttgart tournament. She blazed through the draw, had some tricky matches. For example, the Navarro match, that was a tough one. Could have gone either way. But then her next match, she takes out Iga. Then she has a super tricky match against Alexandrova. It's tough to beat the #2 player in the world and then play somebody who's ranked lower. Often there's a lot of pressure in a match like that, but Ostapenko played extremely well in the semi against Alexandrova. And then she faces the best player in the world, Sabalenka, and takes her out 4-1. When Ostapenko catches fire, she can be hard to beat. She has one of the best, if not the best, return on the WTA Tour off the forehand wing and the backhand wing. Her serve has improved a lot over the years, and her ability to hit winners off the ground is spectacular. On top of all that, Ostapenko is one of the best players when she has to take the ball higher. So if you see her taking a swing volley that's a little bit higher, she barely misses those. And whether it's a higher backhand or a forehand off the ground, she is really good at making power when the ball is up high. I think that's partially a reason why she does so well against Iga, who plays the ball a little bit higher than other players. Now, I'm surprised that she beat Sabalenka because Sabalenka wanted to win this match really badly, because in 2021, 22, and 23, Sabalenka lost in the final of Stuttgart. And Sabalenka wanted that car really badly, and she didn't get it again for the 4th time. And in the trophy ceremony, Arena said that she's just going to buy the car. She can't win this tournament. So you got a feel for Sabalenka, but as I said in some of my previous videos, and some of you guys didn't understand what I was saying, yes, Sabalenka gets mad sometimes, and she smashes rackets. That's not something that I approve of. But what I'm noticing with Sabalenka is that she loses a lot of tough semifinals and finals, and those matches don't seem to linger. She bounces right back, and she could easily win Madrid 2 weeks from now. That's the type of player she is. She doesn't let these losses affect her, and she's lighthearted in the trophy ceremony, and I think that's a good mindset to have. Now back to Ostapenko. She played such a good final. Again, she was returning so well against Sabalenka, who does have a big serve. And interestingly, Ostapenko doesn't stand far back to give herself more time. She has good reflexes, good timing, and she stands close to the baseline and redirects the return, whether it's cross-court or down the line, whether it's the forehand return or the backhand return, so well. And she broke the Sabalenka serve, but in that first set, she would also get broken. I think despite the improvements on the Ostapenko serve, it's still the weak spot in her game, especially if she has a low first serve percentage. But despite losing her serve, I think she was serving well in this match. And what was super impressive, she wins that first set 6-4 and then goes on an absolute roll in that second set and wins 6-1. And I will say that Sabalenka fell apart in this match. She started committing a lot of mistakes and she just caught a bad day. But again, so much fun watching Ostapenko when she plays like this, because it's a festival of winners. And what's so interesting about the winners that she hits off her forehand wing and the backhand wing is that she does it with a technique that a lot of people view as wrong. So let's start with the serve. It has improved a lot over the years, and Ostapenko has a quirky toss. She has a parallel toss arm technique, and when she releases, she curls her fingers like this. Now, this is not something that I recommend that you copy. You want to have a flat release, but I do think that Ostapenko has a pretty good toss despite this curling action of the fingers, and the fact that she tosses the ball with a parallel style, the toss does have a slight arc. Now Ostapenko serves with a full lag, and interestingly, she has an open wrist position as the racket goes up. Again, this is not something that I recommend that you copy, because if you have an open wrist, in other words, an extended wrist as the racket goes up, you might maintain this into the racket drop, and now you might have problems in a very important part of the serve. Now Ostapenko doesn't have those problems. So despite her opening the racket, as it's going up, she does straighten it out as it gets closer to her head and the strings are pointing forward. She has a pinpoint stance. Most of her weight is on her front foot, which is a commonality among most ATP and WTA players. I made a video about the back foot myth that I recommend that you check out. And when she unloads, she does have a small racket drop leak, which is very common on the WTA Tour. But other than that, the fundamentals on the serve are good. She can slice the serve, she can hit it flat with pretty good pace, and she can also kick it. She unloads well, uses her body on the serve exceptionally, and like I said, the serve over the years has improved a lot. It used to look a lot more quirky than it does now. And now we get to the interesting part of the Ostapenko game. And let's start with the backhand. So the backhand is very good, especially the down the line backhand, one of the best in the world. And nothing too unorthodox here. She loops the racket, makes contact with both arms bent. But one small unorthodoxy is that when she finishes, the elbows are somewhat close to the body. So the racket goes in between her shoulder and her neck on her dominant side. And the elbows don't go quite as high as on some other players on the finish. Now, the low elbow finish on the backhand is related to the forehand because it is quite unorthodox. And like I said before, this would be categorized as a mistake from a lot of people. So Ostapenko loops the racket and drops it. She does not tap the dog. So all you guys that are fans of tapping the dog, this is not something that you should worry about. There's a stylistic element. It doesn't really matter how the racket drops. There are different styles on the forehand. And I recommend that you develop a style that suits you, and you shouldn't pay attention to this part of the forehand, because if you try really hard to tap here, you're going to break the continuity and the rhythm of your forehand, and you're going to be in a tremendous amount of trouble. So Ostapenko is a neutral position in the forward portion of her forehand, and now we start seeing some interesting things. So she does make correct contact with her dominant shoulder in front, but the elbow is bent and it's also very close to her body. Once she has made contact, the elbow will stay towards the side as the racket goes around the body. And it's only when the racket starts going around the body on the other side, it is then when the elbow goes forward. So while this might look cramped in slow motion, it looks like she's hitting the ball late, she's not hitting the ball late. Just take a look at some of her matches in Stuttgart, and the forehand looks absolutely amazing. So common sense would tell you that there's nothing wrong with her forehand. And I've talked about this in many of my previous videos. A correct contact point depends on the positioning of your shoulders and not on the positioning of your elbow. So you have to make contact in front with your dominant side. If you make contact behind, it's irrelevant how your arm structure is. You can have the arm completely extended, you would still be making contact late. Now, when it comes to the elbow, it can be close to the body. That's not wrong. This is something that you very often see on the WTA Tour. Now, it would be wrong if the elbow was behind the body. This would put you at a disadvantage. But as long as the elbow is aligned with the body, this is not wrong. And on the Ostapenko forehand, there is some variation. Some forehands she hits with the elbow aligned with the body, other ones she hits slightly more in front. But the arm is always extremely bent and the elbow is always close to the body. Now, another great forehand is Iga Swiatek. And it's different from the Ostapenko forehand in the amount of spin that's generated, but the contact point is very similar. Swiatek also has an elbow position that's close to the body. But if you take a look at the swing path of Swiatek, after the moment of contact, the tip of the racket goes up and across. So she hits the ball heavier. Ostapenko's racket goes up and across, but the tip of the racket comes through. So Ostapenko does have spin on her forehand, but less RPMs compared to Swiatek. Both players, when the racket starts going around the body and reaches this position, have the elbow pointed towards the right. So both the Swiatek and the Ostapenko forehand are some of the best forehands on the whole planet. And they don't necessarily look good, stylistically speaking, when you look at them in slow motion, because it looks like they're cramped, but they're not. They're still making contact at the right place. Now, another player that has a very nice looking forehand is Raducanu. She makes contact far further in front. The arm is still slightly bent, but the elbow is separated from the body. So this forehand looks a lot better because there's more room between the elbow and the body, and the finish looks also cleaner because as the racket goes up and across the body, the elbow goes forward much sooner compared to Swiatek and Ostapenko. So who do you think has the best forehand out of Swiatek, Ostapenko, and Raducanu? I think all three have phenomenal forehands, but I wouldn't necessarily put Raducanu on the top of that list. Personally, I think Iga has the best forehand out of the three because of the RPMs that she can generate. As far as power and the ability to hit easy winners, I would put Ostapenko on top. So in my opinion, despite the Raducanu forehand looking the best out of those three, I would place her third out of those three players. So what this comes down to is style versus fundamentals. The Ostapenko forehand, despite it looking weird, is not wrong. And the Raducanu forehand, on the other hand, despite it looking really nice, is not the right way to play. What all these three players have in common are forehand fundamentals. So they all loop the racket, they all have rotation into the contact, they all make contact with the dominant shoulder in front, and they all finish all the way And there are more fundamentals that these players have in common, and we're not going to get into that in today's video, but I want you to understand that style is something that's unique to each individual player, and fundamentals are technical elements that all players should learn. So long story short, if you find yourself hitting the forehand close to your body, if you're making contact at the right place, this does not matter so much. Do not force the arm to be straight. Do not force the elbow to be further away from the body. This is not as important as making contact in front. Now, mind you that there are some problems with the elbow when it comes to the forehand. Like I said before, if the elbow is very close to the body, if you get cramped in here and it's like digging into your rib cage, or if the elbow gets behind the body like this happens often when players are hitting defensive forehands. This is not good. You don't want to hit your forehand like this. But as long as the elbow is in this position and you're making contact in front, you're going to be fine. And as we saw today in Stuttgart, Ostapenko was hitting unbelievable forehand blasts and delivering one winner after the next against Sabalenka. I want to let you know that on Intuitive Tennis Premium, I have a course titled Style versus Fundamentals, and it's one of many courses on Intuitive Tennis Premium. I'm going to put a link in a pinned comment. And if you have any questions, DM me on Instagram at Intuitive Tennis. And I'll see you guys in the next video.